Hello everyone, my name is Joshua. This is the 103rd video on my video journal series. Today's date is the 22nd of May 2026. It is a Friday night and I'll start with how my day's been. My day's been very good, thank you. Not much today. I finished with all the work that I need to get done for the week and for quite a while actually. Currently on a break. So yeah, life's been good. Obviously, I've just taken a rest from work, and obviously, I have a lot more free time on my hands for the next few months. So I've been really, I guess, like trying to branch off into different things. Not only just resting, but trying new hobbies and uh, finally catching up to my video game backlog. I actually bought a new video game today. I bought the Tamagotchi Life on Nintendo Switch. Um, what was it? Tamagotchi Life Living a Dream. I think that's a video game title. I got it in my room, but yeah, I just booted that up today and I got started for a bit. It's a very fun game. I didn't get Tamagotchi Life on the 3DS, but I wish I did. But now that game's like worth a fortune, I'm pretty sure. Um, but yeah, like it's a very fun game. Tamagotchi Life on the Switch. I recommend you'll get it. You'll I recommend you get it if you're like a big fan of like Animal Crossing New Horizons or the original Tamagotchi Life game, or if you're just like one of those people who really like creating mini avatars and putting them on a in the same town to interact with each other. Like one of those games where you can go at your own pace and there's no real like end objective, but rather just the experience of it. That's how I can like I guess best describe Tamagotchi life. But yeah, it's been really fun and yeah, like I said, it's nice being able to sleep in and not have anything to worry about. But I guess something I want to talk about with you today is have you ever had that one, I guess, person in your friend group or family who likes just driving everywhere? I know in the Midwestern region of the United States, like Michigan, Nebraska, all those like Midwestern states, that you know, it's a common attitude that people love driving everywhere. They're like, oh, instead of going on a 3 hour flight, let's do a 9 hour road trip, sort of thing. That like Midwestern stereotype, like they drive everywhere. Have you ever had someone like that in your family? Not from the Midwest, but like like you say, oh, let's go to the local grocery store or restaurant or whatever, and they're like, oh yeah, let's drive there. But you're like, hey, it's only like 5 minutes walking distance, or maybe like the place is only within a couple of meters of a train station or bus stop. Public transport commute there wouldn't be more than like 20 minutes. But like, no, let's drive. But I'm like, what's the point of driving if some the place that you need to go to is close by anyway. I definitely know some people like that who, despite like um, having a lot of time on their hands, and despite the location being relatively close, they'll like to just drive there. But I'm like, you're not really saving time because obviously you'll get to your destination a lot quicker than walking, but then you gotta, spend time trying to find a place to park your car, and that can take like a couple of minutes in of itself. And basically, all the time savings go to waste if you just spend the time that you save trying to find a place to park your car. You know, um, I can understand maybe for like longer distances. Especially here in Sydney, where most of our like train network is, or where most of our train network is leading into the city centre. So if you want to go from one suburb to another, like that, it will make it a lot more harder because you have to go all the way there to there, if you know what I mean. Um, so yeah, obviously travel times will be a lot longer by public transport, but also public transport's cheaper. And at the same time, if you're going to the city, you're better off just taking public transport. Even if you live all the way out west, all the way down south, east, or north. If you just want to head to the city, the time taken on a train will actually be a little bit faster than driving, but there'll still be some people who drive because they're like, oh, I want to get to a specific place in the city or where I work, or like, but I don't really get that mentality, like driving to everywhere. Oh yeah, let's drive. Like let's drive to Canberra, let's drive to the Blue Mountains. But I'm like, all right, from the Sydney CBD to Blue Mountains, the time it takes for you to drive will only be maybe around half an hour quicker than public transport. But yet again, you got to find a place to park your car. That doesn't account for traffic, road closures, delays, and all that. It can quickly add to the travel time of things. And that's just like, I guess, in a best case scenario, 30 minutes shaved off. You can easily, or saved off. I was trying to be a little bit quirky there, like shaving time, or it should be saving time. But I like to imagine time as a sheep. You shave um, a sheep for its wool, just like how you shave. I don't know where I was going with that analogy, but you know what? Imagine wool as basically time. All right, it's your commodity. It's um, your precious little thing that you need. Um, wool can be used to make lots of things like clothes and jeans and all that. Same how time can be invested into a lot of things like your hobbies, getting from point A to point B. I think that's a better analogy. Um, so yeah, like I would, and I guess there'll always be that one person in your friend group. Maybe you're that person who's like, oh yeah, let's just drive. But now fuel's pretty expensive. We obviously have the oil crisis, um, and price of petrol's gone up, and there'll always be people who need a car, and I think those people should be prioritized. But at the same time, I don't get the mentality of like, even if it's a place perfectly reachable by public transport, you always get that one person who says, "Yeah, let's drive." And you ask them why. Well, they say, "Oh, because I like the comfort and privacy of my own car." Um, you know, um, it'll get us there quicker, get us there more direct. Oh, I don't want to take public transport. And I even had my mum say to me, saying, "Josh, why don't you drive?" And I'm saying, "Well, because I don't like driving." But she says, "Oh, what if you get a girlfriend or whatever? What you got to do? Take the bus?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'll get a girlfriend who's interested in public transport. How about that? Huh? Killing two birds with one stone, I call that. That is essentially, getting rid of the whole connotation of public transport equal bad, and hanging out with someone who actually appreciates public transport and all that. And like, there's nothing wrong with taking public transport. It's a perfectly respectful form of transportation. If everyone took a car, imagine how congested the roads would be. Imagine if you just scrapped all of Sydney's public transport. All the trains and trams and buses and ferries and metro and all that. Um, you know, Imagine how clogged our streets will be. Imagine emergency service vehicles not being able to reach their destination. Um, Truth be told, public transport actually makes it easier for people who need a car to get from point A to point B because it keeps cars off the road. But even during the fuel crisis, like I still see a lot of cars on the road. In fact, I think I mentioned this before on the channel, but like the fuel, like I thought the fuel crisis will lead to less cars on the road. No, it's actually increased. At least like you know, when I go out and about in public, like I just see the amount of cars on the road from like various different suburbs and all that. Not just where I live, but like various other suburbs. The amount of cars on the road, yeah, it's like pretty much like stayed the same or increased. But public transport patronage has also increased a lot, or like by a sizable amount. But yeah, there's still a lot of cars on the road, and like I thought to myself, well, why? And I thought to myself, oh, well, there's always going to be that I guess like fear, that oh, like I need to drive before it's too late, before the fuel runs out. But like there'll always be that I guess group of people who need cars, but there's also going to be that other group of people who you know think they need cars and they drive everywhere with cars, but then they realize, hey, maybe it's maybe I can save some money by catching public transport, or even just saying, hey, I'm not bothered with the car. Maybe I'll just catch public transport. And I know public transport can be expensive for families. It's cheap for the individual, but for families, you got to pay for like kids' Opal cards, parents' Opal cards. It can quickly rack up, which I think there should be a family cap or family discount with Opal. For a family of 4 or 5, you spend no more than like $100 a week, sort of thing. I think that'll be completely fair and reasonable. Um, to have like a family cap within the Opal system. Maybe that'll actually get implemented as policy. Who knows? Because yeah, like a lot of families like to travel, and um, you know, I feel like it's because traveling as a family can be expensive by public transport. Is why they travel by car. Because like, oh, it's going to be a hassle to move the family. We'll just go by car. Well, I think that's where public transport needs to step in and say, hey, it'll be cheaper to move your family. We're going to make it so we're gonna put like a cap on Opal, like $100 a week for families. So your family pays no more than $100 a week. If you've got 2 adults, maybe like 2 children or 3 children or whatever, um, no more than 100, which basically means the children get to travel for free as the adult operates $50 a week. So yeah, like that's pretty good in my opinion. They should definitely do that. I mean, Chris Mintz, if you're watching this, then definitely do that. Introduce a family cap for Opal. But yeah, I guess like you know, I'm like the complete opposite. I'm always like, yeah, let's walk to this destination. Let's catch public transport. Very much of the European mindset. Meanwhile, I guess the car mindset will be that of most of the United States. I say most, except if you live in like New York or maybe San Francisco, a place which is well served by public transport. Um, and I guess like I guess it's like you're taught at a young age, right? At least here in Australia, within my life at least, I was always taught, to get my license, how important driving is, and all that. We're taught at a very young age that I guess like driving is the only way, pretty much the only way to get around, and car is a symbol of independency and all that. But I think it should be the other way around. I think public transport is way more accessible than cars. Obviously we need to make um, you know obviously we need cars within our society, but car centricity is something that I despise. Making a suburb car only or a society car only can only go so wrong. And public transport, I agree. We should improve New South Wales and Sydney's public transport networks, because public transport, you just pay a simple fare, you get on, you don't need a license or anything. Anyone of any age, any physical ability, can catch public transport, which is the great thing about it, and it serves everyone, and it's um, much more friendly on the environment, and it looks cool as well. And if you live next to a train station, well, there'll be a lot of investment and development within that area. So public transport is pretty much like nearly all pros. There are a few cons, like I guess quote unquote increased noise pollution, but it's like way less than a car. Like a bus emits way less noise pollution than 30 cars. Maybe emits a little bit more than one car, but certainly a lot less than 30 or 60 cars. And I guess like obviously public transport won't get to your specific destination, but that's not the purpose of public transport. Public transport is the purpose of linking major hubs and towns and urban places or regional places together. And with good public transport design, you can have major interchange and major hubs located within walking distance of like offices and retail shops. So you can easily, get off at your local or station that you need to get off at, and then you just walk 5 minutes to where you need to be. And that's how it should be. And you get some exercise in there as well. Increased foot traffic means the increased likelihood that you're going to go into another store, which means increased business, which means I guess, which makes businesses happy, makes the people happy, it makes our communities a lot more greener, happier, more prosperous. That's all the benefits of public transport. And like I said, I always hate it when I guess the state tries to fund a new highway that is totally unnecessary, or new like road piece of road infrastructure like the Rosedale interchange, for instance. They spent billions on dollars, billions and billions on that interchange, and um, it actually hasn't improved traffic. In fact, it's actually made it in some ways a lot worse. But imagine that money. That money could be spent towards building a new metro line in Sydney or improving our pre-existing train network. Imagine all that money. How much of it could be used to like upgrade our train fleet and like get rid of some of our older trains and then put in new ones, you know, because um, yeah, Sydney does have like an aging train network. I know we've been getting like new trains in recently, but you know, let's face it, the Tangaras are nearly like 40 years old, right? And like obviously, I love the Tangaras on the exterior at least. I think they look really cool outside, but the inside, it's they get really like dirty and dusty, and you know the Oscars are pretty nice as well. The Oscars, they've got like the thick border windows, which I really like. So you can leave your hand on the window. It feels really nice. And obviously, you got the new D sets. We got the, you know, um, uh, the D set Marion trains. Yep. And we also got the, why am I forgetting this? The Waratahs. Yes. Why do I keep on forgetting about the Waratahs? We also got the Waratahs, which I think is like the most common train on the Sydney train network. The Waratahs are like pretty nice, and they're relatively new. They're only like around 15 years old. The A sets, Waratah A sets. So yeah, they're relatively new. I don't think they need to be replaced for like another 20 or 25 years. Um, but you know, obviously the Tangaras, you need a train to replace the Tangaras. You know, and assuming you know, like free. How much did it cost to build the Rosette interchange? Like over $1 billion for sure. You know, imagine that money. That could basically deliver a whole new fleet of trains for Sydney to replace the Tangaras or to replace the K sets or to replace the Millenniums. Even though I think the Millenniums are like still pretty solid and all that, they you know like that money could be spent elsewhere. You know, signal upgrades, station upgrades. You know, like I said, you could build a new metro line with that money, or you can even go towards Australian high speed rail. You know, like so yeah, that's why I'm a little bit, I guess, angry about road centric transportation or road centric infrastructure projects, or just projects that really only benefit people who drive and not so much public transport. Because um, yeah, public transport's free to everyone, and I just like you know cars, um, like you know cars obviously they're a necessity for some people, but at the same time, you know, how can those people who really need cars be able to reach their destination if you got a bunch of other people who can perfectly make the journey by public transport? Or maybe you know if we or if we improved upon the quality of our public transport networks, you know, I think obviously I'm maybe a little bit too harsh saying this, but we need to obviously if you want to get people out of their cars, you got to incentivize them, and the way you do that is to make public transport better. So yes, I do agree. We need to make our public transport a lot better, a lot more accessible, a lot more frequent, so we can incentivize people to get out of their cars and catch public transport. I don't believe in just simply forcing people to take public transport, because that doesn't really solve the issue of time and all that. Because you know, I think a lot of people would like to take public transport if if, if it was frequent or a lot more accessible where they live. You know, like in Western Sydney, for instance. You know, where buses can uh, get cancelled, and like they get cancelled like at a much higher rate than the rest of Sydney, and public transport access over there is a little bit more lacking as compared to northern or eastern Sydney. You know, um, so yeah, like obviously public transport is a little bit of a complicated issue, but I think we should definitely improve it, and incentivize people to get out of their cars and onto public transport, because public transport is a good thing, and we should definitely, I guess, um, make it easier for people who need to drive. But yeah, I guess I don't really like the concept of, you know, at least what I was raised up with, that you need a car for everything, um, you know, and I just I feel like at this stage in life, I don't need one. Maybe I'll need a car later on. Who knows? But I certainly don't need one now. But ideally, um, if you live in a city, you should have equitable um, and access to quality public transportation. In cities like New York, Tokyo, um, Paris, London, they got fabulous public transport networks. In Sydney, I argue we have a good public transport network that has its major faults, but it's definitely something we need to focus on and improve on. And like, I guess tying it back to my main point, like we always have those, I guess, like people in our groups, family or friend groups who, is known as the driver who likes to go on long road trips and all that. And I certainly like being in the passenger seat of a car, maybe not driving it, but being in the passenger seat's always nice. But at the same time, I just don't like that, I guess, car centricity that we're raised with, or like the idea of building a massive highway, but it doesn't necessarily alleviate traffic, but only adds to the traffic problem. I think it's just like an endless cycle, really. Um, think about all the money that's spent on highways that's not needed, or highways that only clearly benefit a certain, I guess, portion of the population, or just like something like the Roselle Interchange, for instance, or like West Connects, for instance. Money which can be spent on improving our trains, because I think highways are a necessity, but you add too many highways, or you expand the amount of lanes on a highway, it's not necessarily going to solve the issue of demand, I guess. In fact, it's only going to increase demand. It's like basically a water pipe, right? If you make the water pipe bigger, it won't stop the amount of water that's pouring in. It will just, you know, I guess, facilitate the larger volume of water that's been pouring down. It'll pretty much just only, I guess, it will lead towards, I guess, more water being, I guess, released per second or per minute, whatever your measurement is. But it won't necessarily solve that issue of demand. It won't decrease the amount of water that's been, I guess, going through that pipe, if you know what I mean. That's my analogy. So yeah, that's just my, I guess, 2 cents. And like I said, like I just, think that, um, like even people like even some people in my family, like I'm just saying to them, hey, I just want to go to the local bus stop or go to the local train station. It's not that far away. But then they're like, oh no, I'll drive you there. Like I say, no, no, no. It's like it's within walkable distance, like the local bus stop, local metro stop, local train stop, or even you could just be out in public. They say, oh, do you need a ride home? I'm like, no, I can perfectly go home, but thanks for the offer. But I'm like, no, 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 I'll drive you. But like, oh, why do you want to drive me? Because they're like, oh, you need. Obviously, they want me to get there safely, but I think it's also due to the environment that we're raised in. At least here in Australia, at least how I was raised with. I don't know if it's the same for you, where I guess like you constantly, I guess, um, you're basically raised at an early age, like say, oh, you need to drive to get everywhere, um, and that like we think public transport is, um, for quote unquote poor people. That's I don't know where I heard that from. That's completely other bullshit. But like, um, public transport's for people who want to get to their destination but don't have the resources to own a car, or to pay for parking and pay for all that. In fact, like if you live right next to a train stop or bus stop that's like frequent enough, it'll be a wise move to take public transport to work or to your local station, to like commute from point A to point B. It's a wise thing to do. If you live next to a major hub like Chatswood, for instance, or Redfern, like if you live like let's say in Chatswood, right, and you commute to the city every single day, like you wouldn't, like obviously, the wisest option will be to take the metro. If you just work, let's say maybe a 5-minute walk away from Central Station, like obviously that's going to be the most economical option. But like, you're not gonna say, oh yeah, let's drive from Chatswood to my place of work. Like, what's the point? You know, like the metro will obviously take you there to Central, and if it's within walking distance of like any major city station, yeah, I'll just say like go for it. You know, just catch public transport. Or um, you know, I don't see why you know you'll drive there. I mean, it depends on, I guess, your personal needs and preferences and all of that. But like, um, you know, I guess that's I don't know. It's just in my mind. If I can reach to a place via public transport, I will take public transport, even if I can't. You know, I'll often ask for like maybe a lift or carpool or something like that. But like if you have like 1,000 people driving in separate cars to get from point A to point B, and they're both like major hubs, then it'll be a lot more economical to move as people via train or light rail, for instance. So yeah, like I said, you know, I'm not completely opposed to the car. I just don't like car centric transportation. And like I said, I think we should prioritize people who need cars. But you know, in order to get people out of their cars, you need to build better infrastructure. You know, build it and they will come, sort of thing. And I guess to like cut this video off, yeah, I've obviously done a lot of ranting. I know um, I've done certainly a lot of ranting. You feel free to, I guess, disagree with me or point out things in the comments and all that. Um, it's nice to have healthy debate, but I just, um, you know, I'm thankful that my state has a reasonable transport network, um, and obviously it's quite a shame that Sydney's trams are gone. Well, now they come back in the form of light rail, but original tram network was fabulous. But as someone who's been on the trams in Melbourne, they're fantastic. But imagine removing all the trams in Melbourne and just adding an extra lane to all the roads. It will really kill off the local character. But um, I guess that's the reason why I like public transport. Obviously, I'm a little bit biased because I do like public transport. But I just, I guess, don't understand um, the mentality of like if just a regular person like me, for instance, who's got no, I guess, physical disability or can easily walk 5 minutes, says, you know what, why not drive, um, which will be, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 minutes quicker, but then you gotta search for a place to park your car, get out of the car, walk to the place where you could just easily walk there. I don't get the point in driving short distances. Cars should be for like medium to long range distances, not served by public transport. I think like the most like for at least here in Sydney, I'll argue that the majority of people who drive here in Sydney are only doing so short distances or relatively short distances. If you're going long distance, you're better like most amount of people will most probably just fly or take a train or coach or whatever. And I think the vast majority of road travel here in Sydney, yet again, I have no statistics to back this up, but I do believe that most amount of commuters are just doing short distances that are just not well served by public transport, where there's no direct link by public transport, which I think is what the state needs to improve upon. But anyway, obviously I've done a lot more rambling, but yeah, basically, public transport's cool. Yet again, I don't understand, I guess, the mentality of cars and how cars save on time when really they take into a lot of individual factors in as well. Like parking space, the cost of parking, the cost of operating a car, and all that, Um, but yet again, like obviously, for some people that's the only way they can travel, and it is, I guess, it is, yeah, quite, I guess, tough, especially nowadays, where insurance is going up, and especially for someone like me. If I want to get insurance on a car as a 20-year-old, it's going to take me a lot of money. Like, I can get like a cheap nugget car, right? Basically, like a car that only, it's worth like a couple of $100, maybe 1 or 2K, but the cost of insurance would be like insane. You know, like I can't imagine a young person being able to pay off their insurance fully. The insurance premiums for people or males under 25 is insanely high. So that's why I'm thankful for public transport existing. Because if I had to drive everywhere with my own car, with my own insurance, even if it's just a local grocery store, it's gonna cost me a fortune. Yeah, but I guess my wise little quote for today. What is it? I'll say, um, I'll say, hmm, what's a little wise quote? Hmm, I'll just say, walk as much as you can. Obviously, that sounds a bit generic, but I guess it ties in today's topic. I'll say, at least walk half an hour each day, at least do half an hour of walking each day if you can walk, or just spend half an hour outside, touch grass for half an hour each day, but, I like stretching my legs out, I like going for long walks, and I'll just say, you don't have to walk an incredibly long distance. It could just be around your block. I'm pretty sure you know, might have said this before on the channel, but like I'll just say, the longer you spend outside, I guess, the healthier you are as a person, physically and mentally. I always feel good when I'm outside, and I always like it when I come home after a long day and I just like fall in bed and I'm like, oh, it just feels so good. I just hate being inside all day, I just hate being confined. I think that's the reason why I don't really like driving cars, because you're like confined in a small space, Um, and I guess yeah, that's the reason why I like public transport. You can like move around and all that, but that's just personal opinion. But yeah, I'll just say, try and get obviously regular exercise and all that, but just even like sit outside, for 30 minutes and just take out like, um, taking the fresh air, the sun, and all that. Um, I used to study outside. That is, I used to study. Get a book out and just get a chair and study outside, in like a garden or whatever. Or even when I'm out in the city, I just go to like a park and just read a book and all that. It's such a magical experience. I like it. Obviously, not so magical when it rains, but when it's like a nice, sunny day, um, you know, and that's like, yeah, I guess the sort of thing you don't really get from the indoors. Um, Obviously, I said this before on the channel, but I shifted from an indoors to outdoors person. I think part of that was due to COVID, but I guess like same thing can also apply with, I guess, cars and public transport. Like growing up, I was raised with, you had to get a mentality of driving, but once I started catching public transport, I realized how good it was, and I realized that, hey, like, I like catching trains, because with trains you get a lot more leg room than on like airplanes, and you get to walk around. It's a lot less, I guess, frightening experience. And you can always rock up to the station 30 minutes early, juxtaposed to an airport. It's going to be like 2 or 3 hours. But I know I'm getting a little bit off track. But yeah, yes, I guess, you know, um, get some sunshine, get some exercise and all that. Really appreciate, I guess, the beauty that we have outdoors. Um, and I guess, like, in a sense, um, you know, to, I guess, appreciate life and the beauty of nature and the beauty of, not really so much about the end point, but rather the journey, sort of thing. Where if you go for a walk or a hike, you're not really aiming, or you are, I guess, trying to reach your destination, but it's more about the journey, sort of thing. But anyway, that's enough of me blabbing, and I guess I'll catch you all tomorrow. Bye. See ya. Take care.